This story for me had humanism scrawled all over it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story about people who at first appear to be very different, then eventually learn that they have a lot more in common than they previously thought, and through their commonality, they overcome their differences and work together and coexist, right? Like that is the classic humanism story.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
I'm Captain James Kirk.
Spock.
Your move, Captain.
Jim Kirk of the Enterprise.
What's going on? I'm James Kirk. These people are my friends and my shipmates. Leave my crew alone.
Out of the question.
How about that?
James Kirk.
It fits like a glove, Captain.
Oh, the bonehead ideas.
Gentlemen, I'm Captain James Kirk. Get out of my chair. Get out of it now.
My greetings and felicitations, Captain. So good of you and your officers to, drop in. Absolutely smashing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Humanist Trek. It's a Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Allie Ashmead.
And my son is turning 13 soon. Couple weeks.
Congratulations.
I'm going to have a teenager.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for this.
Good luck with all the hormones and mood swings and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's been acting like a teenager for, a year. And her daughter's been acting like a teenager since she was 4. But yeah, I'm not excited by any of this at all.
It'll be fun though. I mean, not necessarily fun. I wouldn't call it fun. I mean, it's a confusing time for them too. Mm-hmm. And they don't know what they're in for, but know what they're in for.
Right. But also, you're an idiot, so they're not going to listen to anything you have to say about the topic of which you are very well knowledgeable.
Yeah, and that doesn't change, unfortunately, even when they're 30. Trust me, I'm an idiot. I know nothing. So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad I only have one son turning 13 and not tens of thousands of baby hordas to raise.
Yeah, that's a lot of mouths to feed.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 26, The Devil in the Dark.
Sir, contact with an object. It's moving toward us. No visual contact yet.
Deflectors, full intensity.
Mr. Sulu, yes, Captain. Anything on your scanners?
It's coming at light speed.
Collision course. Visual contact.
Anything, over?
All wavelengths dominated by ionization effects, sir.
All engines full stop.
The beginning of this episode is a departure from what they've been doing so far.
Yeah.
Right? We're approaching a planet and we get some views inside the mines, but the musical score sets up a very different feel right out of the gate. And then we get a shot inside the cave place set, and it's set up in a very whodunit mystery as we watch this guy kind of freak out a little bit about hearing footsteps approaching. Yeah,
so this poor lone guy is just standing in a cave with a phaser, just looking around, and I'm creeped out. And it's not even, like you said, it's not even on the Enterprise. We're on this planet, and it's none of the characters that we know from the Enterprise.
Yep. It did a great job of establishing the mood right away.
Mm-hmm.
No monsters yet, though. Just another guy with Sam's bump out. Disney nerds will get that joke. That's a 2%er. And apparently, whatever is so dangerous here requires a team of 8 people to escort one person around.
I wrote the exact same thing down. So this poor guy, he hears a noise, and then these 6 men come, and it's hey, it's just us. We're bringing your relief. And they're switching guards. But why does it take... So those 6 men or 8 men, they're just down there to just turn around and leave?
Right.
Why did you need so many men to drop one guy off?
Right. And the only way it made sense in my mind is if they go from one stop to the next and drop another guy off here and pick another guy back up, and drop another guy off here and pick another guy back up.
Yeah.
That's the only way it made sense in my brain.
That's good. I didn't think about that, but because it didn't make sense at all.
I think, but you're right. I think the scene would have been fine or better without them, without those other people.
Yeah, I agree. So this poor guy, and I had to laugh at his name. I'm sure I chuckled. I'm sure you did too. His name is Schmitter. Schmitter. So he's like a little bit hesitant to take over guarding for this guy.
Mm-hmm.
But because nobody ever sees this thing that they're guarding against, and it's already killed 50 people.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Schmitter's like, is it true the Enterprise is coming? I'm dying to get William Shatner's autograph. But those daydreams are ended too soon as everyone leaves, and Schmitter is cautiously creeping around the cave playset when we hear these strong, like, scraping sounds.
Yeah.
Schmitter turns, classic horror movie shot. Schmitter turns, screams, and for like a split second, you see this monster jump at him.
Chief Vanderberg, they just dropped him off, like not even a minute ago. They hear him scream and they double back, and poor Schmitter is a pile of ashes. He's burned to a crisp.
Oh my God! They've killed
Schmitter.
You bastards!
We don't get to see the gore, but Vanderberg gets a tight shot on his face and says, just like the others, burned to a crisp.
Great.
After the theme, the Enterprise has arrived at the Pergium mining colony on Janus 6, and KSM have beamed down to meet with Vanderberg, and Kirk's asking all the exposition questions. And we learn that 3 months ago, they opened a new level in the mine, which was not only rich in Pergium, but also uranium, cerium, and platinum. First, the machinery started to disintegrate, metal dissolving, and they were unable to determine a corrosive agent. And Spock's like, well, just because science hasn't given you the answer yet doesn't mean you get to claim God did it.
Or the devil did it. But yeah, he's like, I'm sure there's an answer. We just don't know what it is yet.
Vanderberg pulls out a map of the caves. I thought that was a neat little set piece, the way the maps like slide into the
out.
wall. Yeah.
At least it's not a PowerPoint, so that's a step up.
He says they sent engineers down to repair the automated mining equipment, and they found them all burned to a crisp. And whatever it is seems to be moving up into the higher levels of the mine. McCoy's like, I'd like to take a look at that body. And Vanderberg says they saved it for him. There's like a pan and broom leaning up against the corner of the room. And Vanderberg picks up the dustpan and dumps it out on the table. A big pile of ashes. And he says, here you go.
He's like, there's nothing. That's pretty much all that's left of it. So McCoy goes out to see the body. As they're talking, there's only one man who's seen this monster, and he comes in, and his name is Chief Engineer Ed Appel. He shot it with his phaser, and I guess here, I'm not sure if they talked about this before, about the difference between a phaser 1 style and a phaser 2 style. But Ed Appel says, I shot it with my phaser, and it didn't even slow it down. So Kirk is like, well, what does it look like? And he says, well, I only got a glimpse of it. And he says, well, it was big and shaggy.
Zoinks! He says they got a good clean shot at it, but his phaser didn't have any effect. So the problem is properly set up now. Production is stopped until Kirk can figure out what's going on. And apparently it's really important to the Federation because they need Pergium for reasons.
Did they ever say? I don't know but everything uses it. All the other colonies on all the planets need Pergium.
Yeah. Widget of the week. Appel was really adversarial with Kirk in this scene, and I didn't really understand what that was all about.
Right. Total attitude towards Kirk and Spock for being on a starship. And he says, well, I doubt your power of your starship is going to do any good down in the tunnels. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
What's with the attitude?
Spock picks up a sphere from Vanderberg's desk. Curious as to what it is, Vanderberg explains there's 1 million of these silicon nodules down in the cave.
And he says, but it doesn't have a value. But Spock's like, well, it's still geological oddity, to say the least. But Vanderberg's like, well, look, we didn't call you here to look at some rocks. We want you to find the creature and get rid of it so we can meet our quota, because they are just apparently Starfleet. I don't know if it's Starfleet putting pressure on them to meet their quota for mining.
Vanderberg and Appel leave as McCoy comes back in, and we learn that the bodies weren't burned. It was more like a chemical corrosion. And McCoy says it's almost as if they'd been thrown into a vat of extremely corrosive acid. Spock's identified places on the map where these incidents were reported, and based on the time of each incident, he's calculated that the monster would have to be moving at incredible speeds to have gotten from one place to the next in that time. Or maybe there's more than one monster.
Dun, dun, dun.
Vandenberg comes back in, and Spock suggests they need to force the creature to come out again. But Vandenberg's like, well, whenever that thing comes out, somebody dies. Cut
People
to
die.
crew person walking through the creepy cave playset with ominous music playing as the scratching sounds return. And this guy gets jumped by the monster.
Oh my god! They've killed
Minus.
you bastards!
And again, we only see a shadow, like a blob. We still don't see what it looks like.
Yeah, that's great, like horror flick approach to storytelling.
I like that. It actually was like, I don't remember this episode.
Mhm.
So I was like really, really engaged and had me really interested.
So we're just left with a charred pile of dead guy, some dry ice tracks leading away from it, and a hole eaten through the metal wall that was previously solid. Back in Vandenberg's office, Kirk's working through ideas. Could we modify the ship's sensors in some way to detect this life form? And when the lights flicker and the alarms start going off, trouble in the reactor room. So down into the caves they go to find the charred body-shaped outline and the hole in the reactor room door. And Kirk goes to touch it, but Spock stops him in case it's still corrosive. Now they have another problem because this monster creature has destroyed the circulating pump for the power reactor that provides heat, air, and life support for the whole colony.
It's interesting because the creature kills the guy outside, goes in, and then he actually takes the reactor's main
Yeah.
pump. Like, without the reactor, it'll go super critical and everything will go up. But it's interesting that he just took that one specific part.
Yeah. The beginning of this episode led me to believe that it was corroded, that it was destroyed, that specific part.
Mhm.
But then later it becomes, we have to get this piece back. And I thought that was real weird.
I guess they had to have a reason to chase him. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. I think they gave the impression because if this thing is corroding all the machinery in the past, why did it take this piece and not corrode it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There's some holes.
For some reason, Kirk doesn't trust Spock's assessment. So he calls up Scotty, and Scotty's like, well, didn't Spock already tell you? We don't have anything like that up here. But what we need now is a miracle worker. So Scotty's going to rig up something that should hold for 48 hours or so. And Kirk says something weird here. Vandenberg is like, cool, so what happens after 48 hours then? And Kirk says, well, hopefully we'll find the missing part by then. And this was the point when I was like, wait a minute, I thought they said it was destroyed. That they destroyed the pump, not stole a part from it. So, I don't know.
Like, yeah, if I'm a monster and I can fucking melt metal, I'm going to melt metal. I'm not going to steal it and play hide and seek with it. I mean, so, yeah, that was some holes.
KSM are still puzzling through this mystery when Spock suggests that while the only life they know of is carbon-based, what if there's, I don't know, a new life form, a new civilization even,
silicon-based?
Based on a different element. Yeah.
But McCoy's like, nah, this is a fantasy, man.
He's like, you're just making shit up, Spock. Silicon-based life? That's crazy talk. There's also, this is when they have the discussion about Phaser 1 and 2, where we hear, and it was mentioned a couple episodes back, where they said Phaser Type 1 or something like that, but they didn't go into the differences. This one gives us some of the differences. Phaser 2 is stronger than Phaser 1, as one might expect. So Spock's going to hotwire some Phaser number 2s to be more effective against silicon, but he seems a little distracted by that silicon orb on the desk, and Kirk asks for Spock to speculate. Speculate. But Spock's a true man of science, so he doesn't speculate. He wants to gather more data and do some more testing before saying out loud what he's actually thinking.
And then plus he says, he's already given Doc enough cause for amusement because Doc loves to just shoot down anything he says.
Kirk pops down to the reactor room to check on Scotty, and Scotty's like, I'm an engineer, not a plumber, but it'll hold for a bit.
But he does say that he said whatever he's rigged up, it's got some tubes and some liquid and stuff. And he's like, it's a plumber's nightmare.
Yeah.
But then Kirk's like, look, do whatever you got to do. You kiss it, you baby it, you flatter it if you have to, but just keep it going.
Meanwhile, a security team has gathered back in Vandenberg's office. And this scene might be the first true, like, security red shirt imagery that we've gotten.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of red shirts lined up in the office, and Kirk is kind of giving them the rundown. We're going to do a level-by-level search, check every passage, every corner, and if this creature shows up, your phasers are on maximum, and you'll shoot whether it attacks you or not. So shoot first and ask questions later? Is this Starfleet or the police in the United States?
It's the police.
It's very out of character for Starfleet. The silicon nodules, they said, were found on the 23rd level, so that's where they're going to have to start. So down in the cave playset, Spock pulls out his tricorder and, as if it's something he's done a million times, refigures it to detect silicon life. Again, I thought that was just theoretical, but apparently it's super easy to just flip a switch on your tricorder and go, oh, not carbon, now this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, he actually detects a life form or something moving through the tunnels. But then they switch to one of the security officers that they split up for whatever reason. Uh-huh. And, of course, he's lurking around. He hears a noise, turns around, and he gets also attacked and burned up.
Oh, my God! They've killed
security troops.
You bastards!
I guess we're meant to believe he was just sort of like frozen with fear.
Yeah.
Because
not even able to shoot.
Yeah. Because Spock says, well, he didn't even have time to shoot. I saw the footage. He totally had time to shoot. And weren't they trained for shit like this? But he just like froze.
They all froze, and nobody got a shot off except the other guy who lived.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Spock finds a tunnel that he says was made very recently and cut better and faster than any of their machinery ever could. And while he's looking at this tunnel, the creature comes around a corner behind them. And now we get to see we finally get to see it.
Monster of the Week is back.
How would you describe this creature?
On top of spaghetti, all covered with cheese.
Ugh.
I lost my toxic meatball. When somebody sneezed, it looks like a fucking glob of meatballs, but toxic. Like a meatball that's gone off. It's bad. It's gone bad.
Yeah. So Kirk and Spock both fire phasers, and it chases the creature away, but not before a chunk of its foam body falls to the floor. And they pick up this chunk, and Spock says, it's like fibrous asbestos. The lighting on the set dims, and a spotlight comes up on Kirk, and Kirk says, if you or a loved one has been diagnosed with mesothelioma,
you're wrong.
You may be
wrong.
entitled to financial compensation.
Oh my God.
Mesothelioma is a rare cancer linked to asbestos exposure.
Oh my gosh.
Please don't wait. Call 1-800-99-LAW-USA for a free legal consultation and financial information packet. Mesothelioma patients call now. 1-800-99-LAW-USA.
Bravo. That's awesome.
So while they're holding this chunk of creature, Spock says they're definitely dealing with a silicon life form, and it moves through the rock as easily as we move through the air, thanks to its very corrosive secretions. So why are they able to touch this severed piece of it?
Right. It does look like kind of like a sausage cheese pizza, but yeah, another hole. But yeah, he should not have been able to pick it up because he didn't want to allow Kirk to touch the wall after he had.
Right.
So inconsistencies.
Anyway, Kirk advises Commander Giotto to instruct the security officers that the creature is injured now. So, expect it to behave like a wounded animal, which is even more dangerous. And then they talk about how they might need multiple phasers shooting all at the same time, or one phaser fired for longer in order to actually kill the creature, because they were only able to damage it.
While they're looking at the piece of pulsating cheese pizza, it does prove Spock's theory of silicone-based life. Mm-hmm. And then he only detects one creature within like 100 miles. And he says something like, it could be the only survivor of a dead race, and to kill it would result in the extinction of a species, which is a crime against science.
Yeah.
Kirk says, there's really no other choice. They've got to get the Pergeum, and this is not a zoological mission. And then he says he's sorry, but the creature must die. And Spock agrees with him, but he says it's still a pity.
I thought it was a bad look for Kirk.
Yeah.
Being on, team kill it because we need Pergeum. Like,
yeah. That's not normally like him.
Are we here to seek out new life and new civilizations, or new Pergeum deposits? Like, what are we really doing here?
He's going all company right now. Yeah. He's like, I'm company man.
In fact, the very next scene, Kirk's got the security guys all lined up again, and he's doing that military pace in front of your troops thing. And Spock talks about how they're going to spread out and try to surround the creature. And he says possibly capture it. Right away, you can see Kirk's not happy. He reiterates nope, shoot to kill, and sends the security guys off. And he's like, what the hell, Spock? We talked about this.
Right.
Kirk tries to reassign Spock to help Scotty with the pump. But Spock sees right through this.
Get him out of the way.
And Spock comes back with well, Scotty has far more knowledge than I do about nuclear reactors. I'll just be in his way. So Kirk tries another approach. He says, well, we can't afford for both captain and second in command to get killed. But Spock's got to come back for that too. He says, with approximately 100 people searching for one creature, the odds against you and I both being killed is 2,228.7 to 1.
So he's like, fine, you can come with me.
There's another little glimpse into that Star Trek humor that made the show really what it was. Again, here when Kirk gets to repeat back to Spock, 2,228.7 to 1. Well, I hate to use the word logically, but with those kinds of odds, you might as well stay.
Yeah.
Whenever there's a comedy beat like that, we get this fun little musical score too that happens. It's kind of a playful.
Those are pretty good odds, Mr. Spock.
And they are, of course, accurate, Captain.
Of course.
Scotty calls up Kirk. The improv fuel pump just crapped out and it can't be fixed. So Kirk orders that they start beaming up the miners. But Vanderberg overhears this and he's like, oh no, we're not going anywhere. In fact, we're coming down there to hunt this little bastard with you. We'll club the thing to death if we have to.
Good luck with that, because phasers don't work. And yeah, good luck.
I thought it was interesting too. We're 2 episodes in a row here where no, you have to be evacuated. No, we're not.
I know, and they're trying to save their lives. And right now, since the pump that Scotty made, as he said, gave up the ghost, which I love that. They've got 10 hours before the reactor goes critical. I guess they're beaming up everybody else. I'm assuming there's more than just Vanderberg and those few men.
Yeah.
So Vanderberg and his security team assemble at level 23. And I think Kirk's plan is to just kind of send them a different way so that they are not in his way.
Mm-hmm. So they all disperse. And when they're alone again, Spock's like, Captain, we are being watched. Dun, 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 dun. Spock gets some tricorder readings that show some recent activity down a couple of tunnels that he says then they converge further down. So they decide to split up and each take a tunnel, which is never don't ever idea. Do that.
We know what's going to happen.
We get some fun tension building though as they go through these tunnels, and Kirk emerges into a part of the cave playset that's just full of those silicon nodules. And he radios Spock, and Spock tells him, don't damage any of them. I'm not going to tell you why. It's just a hunch.
Yeah, and I think at this point, I had figured out what these things were, and I think Spock did too, but wasn't sure.
Yeah. While they're on the phone, the creature knocks down some rocks around Kirk, causing a cave-in that now separates Kirk from Spock. And sure as they hang up the phone, Kirk turns around to see the creature like eating through the rock wall and coming out. Really fun creature work with this thing.
Yeah. Fun and funny as well, because it's like this thing on it's like a float. You've seen those parade floats where they're hovering above the ground, but like there's something underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
That's but it was very low to the ground. So somebody's under there, poor actor, crawling on his hands and knees over those rocks. So
after the break, Kirk has the creature at gunpoint and they do a little push-pull. Just when Kirk lowers the phaser, the creature starts moving toward him, and then he pulls the phaser back up and the creature backs up. Kirk moves left, the creature moves left. Spock calls up Kirk and he's like, I've got fresh readings. Hang on, I'll do some scans. And Kirk's like, that won't be necessary. The creature is 10 feet away from me.
I'm looking right at it.
Looking right at I think it's looking at me.
It's right here, Ray. It's looking at me.
He's an ugly little spud, isn't he?
I think he can hear you, Ray.
But I can't tell.
Here's what's weird. And so then it's Spock who then tells Kirk to kill it.
Yes.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Yes.
This is flip-flopping. Make up your mind. Because this is the opposite of what he initially said.
Mm-hmm. And Kirk says what we're all thinking. Spock, weren't you the one wanting to capture it alive?
Mm-hmm.
But it seems when it comes down to it, Spock puts Kirk's life above everything else.
Oh, my captain. My captain. He's in trouble. And wow. Maybe there is some truth to that.
Mm-hmm. So Kirk's like, nah, it's all good. It isn't being threatening at all. It's just kind of gross looking, though. And Kirk sits down and starts talking to the creature like, well, now what do we do? And the creature turns around and shows Kirk its butt.
Look at my butt.
Where it had been shot earlier, now there's a wound, a visible wound.
Well, only visible because it's different it's a different color than the rest of that mess. It's like the rest of that mess, that meatball is like orange and brown and green, and that one spot is white.
Yeah.
So.
But we're able to sort of start getting an indication this might be sentient life. When Spock arrives, the creature moves toward him, but Kirk tells him not to shoot, and they talk about the silicon nodules again. There's a whole big pile in the corner, and Spock's like, I think I've got it, but just to be sure, I'm still not going to tell you. I'm going to mind meld that ugly fucker.
From a distance, though. He does it from a distance.
Yeah. Again, I thought there had to be physical connection to do the mind meld thing. But then I was reminded that when Spock put his Katra in McCoy in the movie, when Spock dies, spoiler alert, sorry. It hasn't happened yet.
Well,
Not in our timeline.
If people don't know by now,
Right. He did that through the glass.
Oh,
he wasn't able to touch McCoy, but so somehow he did it through the glass.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and it's probably, and we know he has some limited telepathic ability, so maybe that was what it was.
Yeah, I didn't remember any of that. Anyway, Spock gets closer to the thing and he holds his hands up. He doesn't touch it. And when the mind meld connects, he starts screaming, pain, pain, pain.
It sounds like a Dalek.
And it's got such strong emotion that Spock staggers backwards and he's like, that's all I've got. It's an incredible pain. So the creature crawls up on a rock. And this is the...
Well, the floor is a rock. Why didn't you fucking
just
put
do it on the floor? Yeah. It crawls up the side of a rock onto the top. And it starts like pulsating and making noises. And when it moves back off the rock, it has carved in perfect English, no kill I.
I can only surmise that maybe it gained something from the mind meld from Spock, to where it figured out how to communicate with us.
Right. But they're not sure what this means. Like, does no kill I mean it doesn't want us to kill it, or it's not going to kill us? And Spock expositions that this is a highly intelligent, sophisticated animal that calls itself a Horta. So now we know it's what its species is.
It's Horta, and it's also injured and possibly dying.
Weird line read from Kirk here. He tells Spock that I need you to mind meld again because they, quote, need that retardation mechanism.
Yeah.
And we know that words mean different things, but just say we need to get the pump back for the reactor. Right. The retardation mechanism, that weird line read.
Kirk wants McCoy to come down because he's a doctor, and he's like, let him heal. He's a healer. Let him heal. But Spock thinks his medical training is going to be useless because it's a silicon life form, and which McCoy didn't even believe existed in the first place. As they wait for McCoy, so then Kirk asks Spock, okay, can you do it again? Can you mind meld one more time? But this time you're going to have to touch it.
Mm-hmm. So Spock moves slowly toward the Horta, and it lets him put his hands on it, and almost immediately Spock's face twists up in pain. Kirk calls up Giotto. All the security teams and the miners are all gathered at the end of the tunnel, right outside where Kirk and Spock are, apparently.
Yeah, they're about to become angry mob tiki torch guys, and they're gonna take matters into their own hands if they're not allowed to go after this thing.
But Kirk tells them not to let anybody but McCoy through. Spock's getting some strong thoughts from the Horta that says, murder of thousands, devils, eternity ends, the chamber of the ages, the altar of tomorrow, murderers, stop them, kill, strike back, monsters. I thought there were several Star Trek episode titles in that list. If you were paying attention, you might not have caught them. Think about this for a Star Trek episode. Eternity ends. Or the Chamber of Ages. Yeah.
Or
the Altar of Tomorrow. Yep.
Totally.
They could all have been Star Trek episode titles. McCoy comes in and he's like, what weird sexual shit are you doing, Spock? Kirk sends McCoy over to help the Horta, and McCoy's like, I don't know what you want from me. This thing's virtually made out of stone. And for the very first time, we hear McCoy's catchphrase.
I'm a doctor. I'm not a blank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this time it was, I'm not a bricklayer.
Yep. But Kirk's like, no, you're a healer, so go heal the damn thing. And he tells Spock to let the Horta know that we're trying to help. And also that we need that device back.
Yeah. And so if you feel anything on your back end, that's the doctor.
Yeah. Right.
Don't be alarmed.
Spock starts speaking as the Horta again. Understood. It is the end of life. Eternity stops. Go out into the tunnel to the chamber of ages. Cry for the children. Walk carefully in the vault of tomorrow. Sorrow for the murdered children. Mm-hmm. On and on and on. So Kirk heads down the tunnel. Cut to the gathering of miners and security, and Giotto is trying to calm everybody down. The miners are ready to get in there and kill the Horta, and Giotto's like, nope, you stay here. Kirk emerges from the tunnel into a room full of those silicon orbs, but some of them are broken, and they look like large eggshell pieces.
Yeah. This was when
it
I
clicked.
felt like it was confirmed. Yeah. It is what I thought it was. Because round shapes like that don't appear unless it's some kind of egg or spore or some shit that's probably something gonna jump out of or come out of.
McCoy radios up to the Enterprise to beam down something that he needs, and Spock's still speaking for the Horta, and it sounds like it's about to die. Kirk comes back holding one of these broken orbs, and Spock's unspoken suspicion was correct all along. Those are Horta eggs, and they're about to hatch. But the miners already destroyed thousands of them, and that's why the Horta started attacking, to protect its eggs, protect its babies.
Yeah. So then they started calling the Horta a she.
Well, of course they do.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like they haven't learned anything from other episodes. That there's not necessarily a she or a he.
Right.
But they always try to apply our way of thinking to other species.
Mm-hmm. Well, the stereotypical she, the woman, raises the child in this episode for sure. The angry mob takes out the Enterprise security guys, and they burst into the room ready to kill. Kirk's
And these are minors. They can't believe they overpowered like the
security
red
guy.
shirts.
Right. Kirk stops them and threatens to kill anyone that shoots, and Spock explains that the Horta species dies out every 50,000 years, except for one who stays alive to raise the hatchlings. And we found the one.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns out it's not a vicious monster, but a mother protecting its young. Vandenberg seems apologetic. They had no idea, but he's also not too thrilled about having thousands of these things crawling around when they still have pergium to mine and deliver.
Well, Spock says, the Horta doesn't harbor any ill will towards anyone. And then Kirk comes up with a collaboration between the miners and this new generation of Horta. Like, so they can tunnel through the rock, and then the miners can just collect the pergium or whatever they need, and problem solved. And they can coexist. And the miners seem to be open to this idea, but Spock is like, well, this Horta might die.
We still have to worry about this one.
But Spock's had his hands knee deep or elbow deep into his butthole, and
cut to McCoy. And he's got his hands up in a doctor that just scrubbed up sort of way, but they're covered in goo. And he says, he's like, she's good as new. I just troweled on some Quickcrete. It's like a big old silicone Band-Aid.
Oh my God, just like a bricklayer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's pretty proud of himself there.
Yeah. Kirk asks Spock to mind meld again and present this solution to the Horta, and Spock thinks that the Horta will probably accept. And he says, it has a very logical mind, which, after associating with you fuckers for so long, has been quite refreshing.
Welcome.
The button on the episode, back on the bridge, KSM are gathered around the big chair again, and Vandenberg calls up to let them know that the babies have hatched and they're tunneling like crazy.
Oh, how cute. A little baby Horta, a little baby meatball.
I wanted to see the little baby Hortas.
Me too.
I hope Strange New Worlds brings back the Horta and we get to see babies.
I would love to see like a toy, like a Horta, a little Horta toy.
A little plushie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A Horta plushie, because that shit was hideous. Hideous.
Well, they do have the Gorn plush that I have here on my desk. Maybe they have a Horta one. I'll have to look.
And I know they've got tribbles like all over the place.
Hey, if you'd like to send us a Horta or a tribble, maybe I'll get a P.O. box.
Yeah.
You can send stuff to us.
It can be a homemade a homemade Horta.
Vandenberg says they've found these new pergium deposits, but also gold and platinum. And there's a brilliant bit of dialogue here. Vandenberg says that the Horta aren't so bad once you get over how absolutely fugly they are. And after they hang up the call, Spock says, well, that's funny. The Horta said the same thing about humans. They're so ugly. McCoy says, oh, what did she say about those ears of yours, Spock? And he says, yeah, she thought that was the best part, but I didn't have the heart to tell her I'm the only one that has them. And Kirk's like, she really liked your ears? And Spock says, well, the Horta is remarkably intelligent and has impeccable taste.
Spock, and I love his sense of humor.
Yes. And we've seen this ending before. Kirk pokes at Spock a little and he says, Spock, I think you're becoming more human all the time. And Spock's like, I don't have to stand around here and take this shit from you.
Right.
And that's our episode. Did you know, during the credits on the initial airing of this episode, NBC announced that Star Trek would be renewed for a second season. Yay! We get to do a whole nother season of our Star Trek rewatch.
Awesome. Yeah, we are almost at the end of this one.
Yeah.
I forget how many we have left on this season. But yeah, it's always good to get to the end of your episode to find out, even today, like your favorite show is going to be renewed.
Yeah.
And we talked about this before, that it does get better and better each episode, even though they still have a lot of holes.
Mm-hmm.
But the rapport between the actors and also the characters themselves, it's just becoming a natural thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yep.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'm happy the affair is over.
Me too.
A most annoying, emotional episode.
Yeah, but I learned something today.
When dreams become more important than reality, you give up travel, building, creating.
One jealous god, if all this makes a god.
By sparing your helpless enemy, who surely would have destroyed you, you demonstrated the advanced trait of mercy.
Frankly, I was rather dismayed by your use of the term half-breed. You must admit, it is an unsophisticated expression.
This story for me had humanism like scrawled all over it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story about people who at first appear to be very different, then eventually learn that they have a lot more in common than they previously thought, and through their commonality, they overcome their differences and work together and coexist. Mm-hmm. Right? Like that is the classic humanism story.
Yeah, and this particular story has been told several times in this season.
Yes.
But it also tells me, like, once again, humans have gone to a planet and they just start raping the planet for all its resources.
Mm-hmm.
And without regard to what might be there, who it might belong to before, and not even thinking or entertaining the idea that there might be a life form that's different from our own.
Right.
And then they get mad when the life form does show up and think, they're killing us, because they play the victim, but they're the ones doing the damage.
You mentioned something about how, the show gets a little bit better and better each time, and there are holes still.
Mm-hmm.
One of those holes, I did some research for this episode. If there is an episode of Star Trek that fails the Bechdel test, you're familiar with the Bechdel test?
Bechdel test.
The Bechdel test is a test that you apply to a work that it looks to see how the female characters interact. And so, in order to pass the Bechdel test, you have to have, two female characters that are named characters, and they have to be, talking about something that's not a man. Right?
Okay.
Okay. Let me make sure that I'm not missing part of it. It's a 3-pronged test. There are at least 2 women featured, that these women talk to each other, and that they discuss something other than a man. Yeah, I had it right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So when you put that through the Bechdel test, it fails spectacularly. There is not a single woman with a speaking part in this episode.
Right. None.
And here's the research that I did. In a letter from Gene Roddenberry to Gene Kuhn, and Gene Kuhn was, he wrote this episode. His name is all over Star Trek, the original series. On a letter dated March 23rd, 1967, he wrote, from Gene Roddenberry to Gene Kuhn, per NBC's continual reminder to us, one which I find myself agreeing with, we should make some more use of females as crew members in Planet stories, or find some way to include females among groups of miners who are here on a planet years at a time. Granted, again, that this can get phony and unbelievable if not handled right, but let's keep in mind that we're in a century where women are granted equal status and responsibility with men. We should keep reminding the assistant directors of this and discuss same with directors so that they can oversee and control same.
Damn!
Right?
Nice.
So there you go. Gene Roddenberry, in his own words. In the making of Star Trek, Gene also talked about empathy, which is a core humanist value. And in this case, he talked about how impressed he was with this episode and the way it handled the monster, which of course turns out not to be a monster at all. Right. And he notes that the audience starts to be able to put themselves in the place of the Horta, to feel what they must feel. He says, quote, if you can learn to feel for a Horta, you may also be learning to understand and feel for other humans of different colors, ways, and beliefs. When did Star Trek get so woke?
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Right?
Mic drop.
Right?
Mic drop. It's always been, as we said before, it's always been fucking woke.
Yep. So this is the stuff that makes humanist Trek be a thing. When we say that the humanism that Gene Roddenberry wrote into these stories, literally
the
humanist compassion and empathy.
Yeah.
Speaking of compassion and empathy, we might have compassion and empathy for the dead. Did we have anybody die in this episode?
Yeah,
we did.
We had, yay, I finally get to spit mad bars.
Yeah.
I say that jokingly because I suck at this. But yeah, we had 3.
Yeah.
So we had
Schmitter.
And then we had an unknown guard in a red shirt.
Did you think, I forgot to write this down. I thought about it. Did you think when we met these guys for the very first time, this group of miners, they all, and I don't want to be, they all seemed to be like from Brooklyn.
Yes.
Did you pick up on that?
Oh my God. Yes, mobster. They all. So the miners, they all sounded like mobsters. I'm like, where's everybody from New York or something?
That's exactly what I thought.
They did. I don't know why I didn't write it down, but I thought that too. I'm like, why does everybody sound like they're from New Jersey or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know what prompted me to remember that just now, but there's a couple of them dead, and we need to honor them.
Dead, Jim.
We are assembled here today to pay final respects to our honored dead.
Schmitter didn't want guard duty, but guard the tunnel he must. The toxic meatballs suddenly appeared and turned him to ashes, turned him to dust. Vanderberg was briefing Captain Kirk and said the creature had already killed 50, and as they were talking, another guard turned up crispy. 6 little red shirts standing in a line. Which one of them was going to eat it this time? What was his name? Nobody remembers. The toxic meatball turned him to embers. So, ashes to ashes, literally.
All right, well, we want to stop now and thank our patrons.
Let's get right to business.
Fine, I'm authorized to pay an equitable price. Federation has invested a great deal of money in our training. They're about due for a small return.
Listen, we pay off percentages. We're entitled to a little service for our money, huh?
Is this the way your citizens do business, their right of petition?
They pay their percentages and the boss takes care of them.
Is there anything else?
Thank you, patrons.
Thank you, patrons. Patrons get early access to every episode, and we have some merch that you can get at different levels. And we've got some special patron-only content that you can only get by becoming a patron. You can pledge as little as $3 at patreon.com/humanisttrek. And that gets you all that great stuff and really, really helps the production of the show.
I assume you're loitering around here to learn what efficiency rating I plan to give your cadets.
Trainees, to the briefing room. Is that all you gotta say? What about my performance?
Aren't you dead?
I don't believe this was a fair test of my command abilities. There was no way to win.
There's no correct resolution. It's a test of character.
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
I am understandably curious.
May I ask you a question?
Who's been holding up the damn elevator?
All right, Becca's back for the exciting answer to last week's Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge. Last time on Humanist Trek, you asked us
something completely contradictory to the progressive nature of what this series is supposed to be happens in this episode, but never again in any future franchise production. What is it?
Now, we cheated because we've already seen the episode, but despite having seen the episode, did not agree on what our answers were going to be. Allie, I'm struggling to remember what you said.
Well, okay, the contradictory thing was that they wanted to immediately kill.
Kirk and Spock flip-flopped on their kill it or not kill it.
Yeah, and they wanted to they were okay with eradicating an entire species. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said it was the episode's lack of women.
Oh, I bet that's right.
With the Bechdel test.
The answer is there isn't a single female speaking part in this episode.
I swear. I'm going to have to I'm going to have to Google.
I'm going to just have to send you the answers.
We're just going to
I'm going to have to Google because I know you do research and I sometimes do research, but I'm going to have to Google.
I don't do a ton of research, but occasionally I pick up those things. And if we properly record them well in advance and not have this problem as often.
Mm-hmm. True.
Okay, next week we'll be reviewing Errand of Mercy, Kirk and Spock battle Klingons to free Organia. I do not remember. I remember the episode title. I do not remember much about the episode at all.
I don't either. And is this the first time that we see the Klingons? Because I don't think...
No. I believe this is the second appearance of the Klingons.
You better back that up, because my question... Fuck.
What is your question?
This episode introduces the Klingon Empire is the first line of my question.
What?
I thought so. Because we haven't seen them yet. We saw the Romulans.
That's
maybe
what
that's
Google
what I'm
gave
thinking.
me.
Maybe that's what
I got it right.
Allie gets 1 point.
Give me a fucking point.
Extra credit for Allie.
You didn't even ask the question.
I know.
All right, ask the question.
This episode introduces the Klingon Empire. Where did the inspiration for the name Klingon come from?
Oh, shit. I don't know that. Klingon. Maybe some household product? I don't know.
Maybe like some ancient Japanese something or other. Weren't the Klingon warrior, like the idea of the warrior, didn't that come from an Asian inspiration?
I can imagine, because they always talk about dying well and
honor and
it could, and they've got that like sash thing for Klingon.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I was like, it's some kind of like household product. Klingon? I don't know. Kling off.
Gene Roddenberry was taking a shit one day.
Isn't Klingon like, I was just about to say, isn't that like the toilet thing that you hang on the side? God.
I hear Becca like dying in the back.
Oh my God.
Okay, I'm going to say it was something to do with a name of like one of Roddenberry's army buddies. That's my way out of the fucking blue guess. Becca's shaking her head.
I'm gonna cry.
Well,
okay, I gotta write it down. Old army buddy.
You guys.
It reminds me of
okay.
MASH. You remember Klinger from MASH?
Yeah.
That sounds good. We'll go with what Sarah said, because
I wouldn't trust Sarah.
The word
normally I would.
The word Klingon doesn't sound anything Japanese or.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't agree with that.
Yeah, I say it's something to do with an old army buddy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've locked in our wild guess. If you want to play along, no cheating, no Googling, set a course for Klingon space in your nearest social media. And post your answer. Becca's still shaking her head.
Why are you shaking your head, Becca?
This is just out of hand now.
All right. If you want to play along, no cheating, no Googling, set a course for your nearest social media app and post your answer. Use the hashtag Starfleet Challenge and we'll pick out our favorite to be the winner. All right. Well, then next time on Humanist Trek Season 1, Episode 27, Errand of Mercy.
Live long and prosper.
Kapla!
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcast. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/humanisttrek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.